we did have a massive signing in the NFL. We had the disgraced, the rejected, some would say ostracized, discount Ryan Gosling, Jared Goff. He's back and he signed a massive deal and he's currently, I believe, the highest paid quarterback by year now.
Yeah, he got paid 4 years, $212 million, $170 million guaranteed.
Say it again.
$212 million. The highest paid Lion in Lions history. Congratulations, Jared Goff.
Congrats, Jared. I mean, for someone who was so destroyed by the media, I felt like
Slandered.
for someone like Jared Goff, he came into the NFL and you have Jeff Fisher as your coach. You're like, oh, this is like playing for Rick Pitino or John Calipari when they were an NBA head coach. And then you walk in to the worst situation possible, a guy that wouldn't know an offense if it was written on a brick and hit him in the head and knocked it into his brain. He still wouldn't know it was there. He wouldn't know how to pull that offense out of his brain. He would still just be sitting there thinking about how he could ruin another quarterback's career, like a Jared Goff, like Sam Bradford. Then Sean McVay comes in. Oh, suddenly Sean McVay fixed Jared Goff. It's all Todd Gurley here, even though they get to a Super Bowl there. And he's like, Jared Goff, you're not good enough for me. Trades him away to Detroit of all places. Jared Goff, California guy, California, warm weather, freezing cold Detroit, Michigan, where you literally get snow because it's so cold off of the lake. And you sent him there to the frozen tundra. Then Dan Campbell says, hey, man. No, he didn't say, hey, man. He says, hey, man, we're going to rebuild your confidence. We believe in you. You're our guy for our team, and it's all about grit. You're going to be the one to get us there, man. And now Jared Goff has worked with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's worked with the Detroit Lions, been there every step of the way, brick by brick by brick, rebuilding the Lions, a team that had not seen playoff success, leading them to the greatest season ever in that franchise history. How many people can say that they've led their team to the greatest season ever? Not that many people. And
Not
now
that many
Jared
people.
Goff goes from Outcast to signing the largest contract in Lions history after leading them to their most successful season. Well-deserved, Jared Goff.
Well-deserved Jared Goff. And here we are now. Everything you mentioned there, the slander. I remember when he was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in LA. You remember that classic Mexico City game. And then between there and 2020, he went from premier quarterback in the NFL to disgraced, out of LA, abandoned him, swapped him for 34-year-old Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford obviously goes on to win the Super Bowl. And now at this point, the conversation can be had, who won the divorce? Because at this point, I look at it, Jared Goff going from the beautiful palm trees of LA, going to what was equivalent then, maybe not quite Tepperville, but one of those teams that you go to and die, like the 2000s Cleveland Browns, like the Panthers of today, like at this point, the New England Patriots. You go there and your career is completely over. Plenty of examples of it. You go there and not only do you resurrect that team, but you bring them to their peak that you haven't seen them since maybe Barry Sanders, if even Barry Sanders. And then signing this massive contract. You look at them compared to the Rams today, where the Rams are, where the Lions are perennial, at this point, going to be perennial Super Bowl contenders, where the Rams aren't quite there yet, and Matt Stafford is on the wrong side of 30. At this point, I think it's safe to say the Lions might have actually won the divorce, especially with who they got in return.
Yeah, I think for that, it's a little bit complicated because the Rams did accomplish their goal and win a Super Bowl. So I think once you win the Super Bowl, automatically you won that divorce. However, you can also look at it like, did we actually need to give up that much capital to acquire Matthew Stafford when Jared Goff probably could have gotten the job done? Because guess what? Jared Goff didn't have Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr., who had his last year and Odell Beckham Jr. was in that season with the Rams. He picked up a call. It was from 2016, and Odell Beckham Jr. turned back the clock for that season. That was really the underrated storyline in that Super Bowl on why the Rams won. It was because of Matthew Stafford, but at the same time, Jared Goff was there. He had been there. And when he lost, it was because Todd Gurley didn't have any knees at that point. You had Cooper Cup there, but he didn't have that number two like a Odell Beckham Jr. It was still the Robert Woods of the world as his number two receiver. However, I think the Rams still end up winning the trade because they get to the Super Bowl. They end up beating the Bengals there. And then the Lions also win it because they had their greatest season ever. They get stability, which stability in Detroit, that's something that's unheard of. And the fact that people are casually talking about Detroit being the favorite to win their division, being expected now to make the playoffs, and now you're expected to win games, and you have the expectation of being in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. That's like a Super Bowl for the Detroit Lions. So I think there's not really a clear winner and loser because I feel like, hey, I don't really like handing out participation trophies, but I think we're all winners in this situation, and this is just a positive outcome where it really worked out for both teams here, which you definitely don't see that often in sports, especially when Danny Ainge is involved.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the case there. I think if the Lions end up winning a Super Bowl, then at this point, it's no contest that they win that Super Bowl because they
Right.
wouldn't have won it with Matt Stafford. And then all the picks that they got turning into the Jameson Williams of the world, turning into the Penny Sewells, turning into all the players that turned into that team. I think they ended up getting Sam Laporta, I believe, with one of those picks as well. With that, with all the players that they end up getting in return and they potentially win a Super Bowl, that's when we can revisit that conversation, which I think they're geared to do so this year. And they should have honestly won it last year if they could have just had a better second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they were right there to win the Super Bowl, especially because once they're in the Super Bowl and it's Jared Goff versus Patrick Mahomes, you've already won because Jared Goff owns Patrick Mahomes there. But I think this is a situation where we do have to wait for the Lions to actually win the Super Bowl to say that they definitively won the trade. But I think both teams won right now because the Lions, no one talks about the Lions this way. No one has ever talked about the Lions this way unless you grew up in the 1960s or 70s. So the fact that we're talking about them this way now, I say that's a win for Detroit, but I can already hear the people right now. Oh my gosh, how could you pay Jared Goff $212 million for a B-plus quarterback? It's going to ruin your franchise. And to that you say,
Fools! They paid Amon-Ra, they paid Penny Sewell, and now they paid Jared Goff. They have their core set for the next 4 years, and I think within those 4 years, you could definitely see them in that Super Bowl. So